Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Pearsall to be held today, Tuesday, October 16th. The time is 7:01. May I have a roll call, please? Present.
Robert Correa.
Present.
Richard Gamba.
Here.
Sonia Hernandez.
Here.
Brenda Trevino. Juliana Hernandez.
Here.
Ed Briscoe.
Here.
Gayla Brady.
We do have a quorum, so let us please stand for our invocation as well as pledge of allegiance.
Yeah, my back hurts.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we come before you at this moment. We thank you, Father, for our council and the city manager and all those that attended the conference here this last week. Lord, thank you for taking them and bringing them back, Lord, safely. Father God, at this moment, we ask that you pray this city council meeting here tonight, that, Father, there may be prosperity, there may be a moving forward in the most positive way, Lord God, that will benefit each and every citizen within the city of Pearsall and even including Pearsall County, Lord God. And so we thank you for your blessings. Give them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the record, Councilwoman Brenda Trevino, arrival 7:02, please. Alrighty, moving on to 5A, new business. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of a city-sponsored tournament to benefit Frio County cheerleaders traveling abroad. This is an action item, so I need to entertain a motion to discuss, please.
Motion.
May I have a second? All in favor? Yes.
Madam Mayor, Council, have some of the young ladies here again, if they would like to make an additional request of this.
Who's gonna come forward?
Share them all.
I'll start.
Okay,
I'm the mother.
okay.
Hi, I'm Jenny Schaefer, and this is my daughter Lauren. This is Alamar Garcia. These are both Pearsall cheerleaders. And we have a couple of others, but they're playing volleyball. And then we have some, this is Angel from Gilly, and they all participated in the tournament that y'all sponsored for us. And it was a really good turnout, did really well. The city did the door and entrance and all that stuff for us, and we benefited from that. And as y'all probably remember, we're going to London for a trip. There's 8 girls in all, 4 from Billy and 4 from Pearsall. And they will be participating in the London New Year's Day parade. So that was was invaluable to these girls, the support that y'all gave them and the money that was raised. They raised about $1,000 a piece.
Awesome.
So. Y'all have any questions?
Yeah, Jenny, lady, we would love to hear you come back in the first meeting after you come back and tell us about the trip.
Pictures.
Yeah, just tell us what you saw.
We want a
felt.
slideshow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Videos, anything.
We'll see if somebody's able to do that. I can pass around pictures. You can pass my phone around.
You can just send them to the city manager. He
Oh,
can make it
okay,
happen.
okay.
Congratulations. We're excited for you.
Yeah, these are all American cheerleaders. That's how they
Awesome.
earned that distinction at their camp. They were nominated and competed and earned that honor. So that's
Awesome.
why they get to go participate.
Congratulations to you.
So, Madam Mayor, let me add that. So, for each one of them to go, they had to make 3 payments. The first payment was made before they came and talked to you guys at the last month or month before, whenever the first time was they came and spoke to you. At the event that we had, the girls were able to raise almost everything that they needed to make the second payment. They still have one more payment to make. And so what they're requesting is that the city sponsor one more tournament. But this time, instead of it being a 1-day, it'd be a 2-day. So that we can do everything at the sports complex and not have to split up between the sports complex and the high school. With Saturday being the pool games and Sunday being the tournament games. Hopefully a 2-day tournament, get people to stay here overnight, bring some more revenue into the city as well. So what they're asking is a 2-day tournament on November 10th and 11th. Okay? November 10th and 11th. And your last payment is due on the 15th?
November 1st.
November 1st. So it would
But
be,
they work with us.
they work with us, we just let them know what's going on and they'll work with us.
So that's what the request is tonight.
Thank you first.
Well, I was just gonna ask, do we have, this is city, can the city pull it off again?
Yeah, well, for the girls, you bet. Anything for the kids?
That was the question.
Oh, that was a question. Okay. Any other
So,
questions?
do you have another question?
Fix to make a motion.
I just have a quick question. Who's gonna be in charge of the teams and the tournament and all that?
Okay, so we'll run it the same way we did as last time. Justin took care of setting up the tournament and taking care of the teams and all that. The city didn't have anything to do with that. We ran the gate, and took care of all the stuff at the facility itself. And then the girls ran the concession stand and did that part of it. So it went really smooth. We had, it would be nice to do it as a 2-day event because that was a long day for everybody. We started at 7:30 in the morning and finally got out of there about 10:30 or 11 at night. So it made it for, and that, if we wouldn't have used the high school, we wouldn't have been out there till 3 or 4 in the morning. So doing it as a 2-day, doing the full play on one day and then doing the other, split it up the way, and the teams that came really liked the way the tournament was ran. The girls really benefited in the fact that the 6 weekends, really the 6 weekends before the tournament that they had, every place else had been rained out. And so teams came in from all over, we had teams from Corpus and Laredo, Del Rio. We had a team that signed up out of Dallas. They did not make it. We had a team out of Dallas that signed up. We had teams coming in from everywhere. San Antonio, Kerrville, Kingsville. I mean, there was teams from all over the place. It was the largest tournament we've ever had at the sports complex. That's why we had to spill over to the high school. So we can keep it all confined to one space.
So what weekend are we looking at?
November 10th and 11th.
Is there any conflict with anything else?
What about the band competition?
It's the same weekend.
Same weekend?
No, wait.
It'll be on, if we make it to, only if we make it to the state level, it'll be November 5th or 6th. That's a Monday and Tuesday.
No, we will.
Are you really?
Okay, so, go ahead, sir.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the sponsor of a volleyball tournament similar to the first one, but make it a 2-day event. Benefits going to the cheerleaders that I mentioned. The 4 from Pearsall, the 4 from Dilley on the weekend of November the 10th and 11th.
There's a motion on the table. May I have a second, please? Second. Okay. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done. Congratulations. Yes,
Good luck, ladies.
Class act.
Have a good one.
Awesome.
Bye.
We should have put that last one, all crowd would be.
For whatever reason, I overlooked, was there anyone signed up for citizens to be heard? Okay, awesome. Okay, then we proceed on to 5B. Discussion and possible action regarding the proposed payment in lieu of taxes, the pilot agreement with South Texas Electric Co-op. Oh, okay. Once we vote on this, then I'll acknowledge Councilman Frazier.
Motion to discuss.
Yes. Second. All in favor? For the record, Councilman Glenn Frazier, arrival was 7:08. All righty, discussion, sir.
Ready? Okay, so the next 3 items on the agenda, next 2 items on the agenda, you can only approve one of them, obviously. So we put them back to back. We have a proposal from STEC for a pilot agreement. It's not exactly what we asked for. So that's why the proposed annexation is the next item after that. So we're gonna talk about this. You guys can make a determination as to whether you want to accept what they counteroffered. If you choose to do that, then we'll skip the next item on the agenda. If you choose not to accept it, then we'll consider the annexation of the facility. So I'm gonna kind of go through what we got from them, what you guys authorized us to do and what we got back from them. we talked about this at the last meeting. A pilot agreement is basically known as an extraterritorial jurisdiction non-annexation agreement. So if you have a area or a facility or whatever in your ETJ that you have considered, you're considering annexing, you can enter into a pilot agreement with them rather than annexing them, and it kind of alleviates some of the responsibilities for both. It's provided for in section 212.172 of the Texas Government Code, and it's utilized by many cities across Texas as an alternative to annexation. We've had some significant discussions about how Hondo used it, and basically signed a pilot agreement with everything around it to increase the revenues for their city. Basically what you guys authorized Bobby and I to do was to go to STEC and talk to them and propose a pilot agreement with them under the following conditions. That 90% of the annual ad valorem tax rate on the current appraised value of the facility on the appraisal district roll. So whatever it appraised every year, it would be 90% of what our tax rate was for that year. So if the tax rate went up, it would be 90% of that tax rate went down, it would be 90%, and it's whatever their appraised value is for that year, so that appraised value will change every year based on depreciation. Now, the first payment was to be paid in 2019 as part of this fiscal year. It was to be in perpetuity or forever. Then it would include continuation of the services being provided, which right now is water, and that's what we provide to them out in the ETJ right now, and they would provide no new services. So that's what we went to them and gave them. We had a meeting with them in San Antonio, and I visited with them on a week for an hour and a half or 2 hours, I guess. The director of the STEC facility here actually had a board meeting the next day. We talked about that when you guys authorized us to go, how they seemed to be very quick to want to have that first meeting. That was why he was wanting to have that, because they were having a board of directors meeting already that next week. He didn't say a whole lot. The attorney said a little bit, kind of went back and forth a little bit. He said he would take what we gave them and go to his board and talk to his board about it. After they had their board meeting, actually the day they had the board meeting, I got a number of text messages from the director out here asking specific questions about numbers, about percentages, about a bunch of other stuff, because they were sitting in a boardroom putting those numbers into their budget, trying to see how the numbers would work out in their budget and what the value was to them of signing this or not signing it. What they came back with after a few iterations, what they came back with is this. They're offering to agree to 82% of the annual ad valorem tax rate on the annual appraised value of the appraised district rolls. So same thing as what we talked about, just 82% instead of 90%. Tax rate goes up, they pay on the increased tax rate. Tax rate goes down, they get the break. And whatever the appraisal district comes up with for their appraised value, that's the number that we use. They did agree the first payment during this fiscal year, but it would be way towards the end of the fiscal year in August of 15, because they don't have a budget right now and they gotta figure out how to get it worked into the budget. The following year, rather than paying on January 31st, they would pay on March 15th, so give them a little bit of a gap between August 15th and January 1st. Because if they make that first payment August 15th of 2019 and turn around in January and have to make another one, those two payments are pretty close together. So they asked that the second payment be pushed off to March, and then every subsequent year be on January 31st like everybody else. That each pilot payment be trued up if there is an administrative or judicial challenge of the taxable value that's not resolved before the payment's due. So the appraisal district, just like they do with your properties, they give you a tax value, and you have the right to challenge that tax value. And so what they're saying is if they'll pay, the date is due, they'll pay based on that value. But if they do get an administrative hearing after that and the tax value goes down, then they get a refund on the part that went down. If it goes up, then they pay the extra on the part that it goes up. They wanted the term 45 years. We had a slight discussion there about whether in perpetuity was even legal, that it may have to have a time frame attached. So at 45 years, that is beyond depreciated as it is, unless there's new construction out there. And at the time of new construction, we could talk about extending it. And they agreed continuation of the services being provided and no new services. So they did agree with that part. So not a lot different than what we had originally looked at, a little bit different on the value, and a little bit different on the timeline slightly, but the timeline I'm not worried about. We can work with the timeline. So, and then future expansion. What we talked about on future expansion was 80 to 85% of all future expansion. That was one that they really have heartburn with. And I'm going to show you what they gave us, and I'm going to tell you why they gave us this. This is what they counter-offered on expansion. Anything that's over $1 million would be counted as an expansion project. If it's under, it just goes on the value of the existing facility, and it falls under the current pilot agreement anyway. But if they were going to do a project over $1 million, this is the time schedule they wanted. Basically, while it's under construction, they don't pay The first year after, they would pay 15% of the value, second year, 25, third year, 35, 45, 55, 65, up to 70% of the value. Now, the reason that they're asking for that is, I mean, he didn't come out and say this, but it's clear. This is the same kind of abatement schedule they get from everybody else. So if they were gonna build someplace else, that's the abatement schedule they would get from a county on the taxes to be able to build there anyway. So for us to tell them, okay, we'll give you 85%, we would kill the chance of any economic development out there, because they wouldn't be able to afford to do it. Or they could go to another facility and just build and get that kind of a rate from whatever county they were in, where it was at. Now, there's a couple other things we'll talk about a little bit farther down the road on this. Abatements are one of the things that the legislature is attacking. And that's gonna be a big battle in January of this year, because every time a county or a city gives an abatement, the state's losing tax money as well. And so they're trying to limit cities and counties' authority to offer abatements, and that's gonna be one of the many financial challenges we're gonna face out of the legislature this year. So anything that would be put in this would be, I mean, that would already be done, and it would be in a contract. So 5 years from now, if the county, or if the state did take away the city's ability to do an abatement, that would make this facility, their private facility, to come in and do an expansion, because every place else they wouldn't be able to get those abatements. So, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. We lose a little bit of value in giving this, but we probably guarantee that if they do any future expansions and the legislature changes something, we probably guarantee that it comes here, because they're gonna have that set in this agreement. So it's got benefits on both sides. So looking at the actual numbers of this, so the taxable, if we're looking at just taxable value on that stack property for this year, their full taxable value is $66,829,000. But they get a pollution control credit, and that was not something the county disclosed to us when they told us the actual value the first time. So their taxable value is actually $58,943,180. And they challenged that taxable value for this year. They're saying it was too high, and I imagine they probably challenge it every year. Trying to get every bit of a break out of it that they can get out of it. So, but it has been a challenge for this year. So at our full tax rate for this year on the pollution taxable value, which is what we can get, if we charge our full tax rate, if they were just annexed, if they were annexed right now, and that's what we're getting right now, we get $525,183.73. That's what they would owe us if they had been annexed prior to this year, and that's what they had to pay this year. At the 90% pilot rate that we offered, they would have paid us $472,665.36, which is a net difference of about $52,000 off of the full taxable value. At the 82% pilot rate, which is what they're proposing, they would pay $430,650.66, which is $94,000 off of the full taxable value and $42,000 less than what we had offered. So in looking at it and looking at the number differences, the real number that we're looking at is the 42,000, because that's what we had offered the 90% already. And so the net difference in accepting this or not accepting this is about $42,000 in the first year. So the decision to be made is the 2019 payment worth the reduction in future revenues. So we'll kind of look at how that plays out. At Steck's counteroffer, the city would receive $430,651 it is the first fiscal year. That's $94,553 below the full tax rate and $42,014 below what we proposed. One of the things to remember is, I mean, you know, they are a function, they live off of depreciation. So they get every penny they can get a depreciation off of that value every year, because that saves them money. It's, I mean, when you own something that's highly taxed, you really hit the depreciation schedules and work those things as hard as you can. So they depreciate those properties as fast as they can depreciate them, as fast as IRS will allow them to do it. So that value, that total taxable value is going to come down every year. So next year it'll be less than it was last year, probably somewhere in the 7% range. Probably is that about right for them? 7 to 8% is about how much it drops every year. Without accepting the pilot proposal from Steck, the full amount will be made up in 4.5 to 8 years beginning next budget year, depending on the rate of depreciation for the city. So if you said no to this, then we get nothing in this fiscal year, and you approve item C, and we do the annexation, then in the next fiscal year, we would get the full payment, which would be less than what it would be. This should be up $500,000, I'm assuming, after you look at depreciation. So losing that $430,000 in the first year, if you look at that over time, how long it takes us to make it up, it takes at least 5 years to make it up, if not 8, depending on how fast it depreciates. So that, I mean, that's something to think about. We have that money in hand for this year, If we don't take it, we get a bigger payment each year after this, but it takes us all that time as well to make it up and to get back to what we would have had at hand this year to do stuff this year. So that's one of the things you guys are gonna have to consider. So if you're just looking at the pros and cons of all this, I'm just trying to throw a few things up here. If you accept their counter proposal, it provides additional revenues in this fiscal year. Obviously, that $430,000 will be available for this fiscal year. Alleviates the need for the city to provide any services at that facility. So if we don't accept B and we move forward with C, I guarantee you they're gonna come back and want every service that we have to provide under the law, because that's gonna be their way to try to get the annex. So they're gonna want sewer facilities out there, they're gonna want everything out there to that facility, inside the required timelines, because that'll be the way that they'll try to get out of it. Another benefit is by accepting the pilot agreement, it allows the city to annex 215 acres someplace else. That's part of the acreage that we have available in our total to be annexed that now doesn't get used. So that allows us to go someplace else and maybe make up that $42,000 real quick by doing something else. It minimizes pending litigation, legislative action related to abatements, annexations, and local authority. So I mentioned the abatement thing. We know that's one of the things that's being challenged, and that's being challenged pretty hard right now in the legislature. The legislature is also looking at trying to take away cities' abilities to annex, and the legislature is also looking at trying to, it's an attack on every bit of local authority that cities have. I mean, they're trying to make blanket laws for everybody, where everybody falls under those regardless of what's going on in your local community. They have, and I don't know if we'll talk about this at the next council meeting or if we'll actually talk about this at the retreat or both. They have rechanged that whole tax structure to make up money for the state to the point that it's hitting local residents really hard because of the mandatory increases in appraised values. And they're trying to blame that on the cities. And by that mandatory increase on the property values, and all of you, just like we talked about this year before we even started talking about our budget, we talked about last year before we even started talking about our budget, everybody had already got their appraisal, their letter from the appraisal district, and their taxes had gone up. And the reason their taxes had gone up was because the legislature had mandated that those appraised values increase. And they did that because they were trying to create additional revenue for the state and additional revenue for the schools, because they're taking money from the schools. And so in 2 years ago, in the legislative session, with what they did mandating the increases, they made up $1 billion. The state got $1 billion in new revenue out of that, and turned around and put commercials on every TV channel telling everybody it was the cities that did it. And they're gonna continue to do that. Last year, they tried to blame it on just the cities. They tried to separate the cities and the counties and the schools by saying that the cities would have revenue caps and nobody else would. Now they're looking at a 2.5% revenue cap for all the other governments, whether it's schools, cities, or counties, and they're looking at that 2.5% revenue cap. And when they start hitting 2.5% revenue caps, whether they get any of it through, whether they get the abatement law through, they get the annexation law through, or they get the revenue cap law through, if we have a 2.5% revenue cap, we couldn't look at a pilot agreement with anybody. We couldn't, because there's not enough additional revenue every year to be able to do anything. Your city can't even keep up with inflation at the 2.5% revenue cap. This offsets a lot of that, because it would be before they could do any of it. And it does provide a significant economic development incentive for STEC to come here and to continue expansion here if they're going to expand someplace. The cons, of course, it would reduce revenues across the time frame. The reduction would minimize over time, because as the value of that property comes down, then that reduction gets smaller. The payments, I can't even see that thing. The payments are late.
It can be offset.
Yeah, the payment is late in year one, but that can be offset. We have a way to be able to utilize that money up front, and then just when we get the payment paid back, because I think we're gonna have enough in reserves to be able to do that. So that's not really a concern, even though they wanted to move it later. It lowers the annual payment on future projects if more than one should occur, because it does have that graduated scale to get to it. But one of the things we always used to talk about when I was a county manager in New Mexico, we looked at abatements for new facilities that are gonna be built there. 0% of zero, zero. And so if you don't give them some incentive to come in here, you're gonna get $0, because there's no incentive for any group to come in. So I'd rather have 15% of $1 million than 0% of nothing, because they went someplace else and built it someplace else. If you have any questions, I know that was really fast, and it's a big decision to make. So whatever questions you have, we'll try to answer all the questions you have. Bobby was in all this too, so Bobby can answer whatever questions you have as well.
talked through it. You know, we're giving up, to accept that, basically we're giving up $42,000 from what we had agreed to. I think about what is the value to us as a council of working with them. You know, we can take it, we can say no, and then we can annex it and get it done, and you know, it does represent substantially more money, but I'm just thinking, you know, too, it's been out there all these years, and it's something that we haven't had. It is a great addition to our cash flow, and I'm just thinking, what is the value of working together? If they put this out there and we agree to it, they can't say really anything but thank you, you know. So anyway, that's kind of the thought that I'm thinking about. The only little thing that, you know, I wouldn't want to mess with it too much, but I'd like to go back and say, you know what, we'll accept this, but instead of year 7 going to 70%, let's just take it to year 8 and go 82% so it matches, you know. And I don't want to, anyway, it's just my thoughts about it, and make it real simple and real easy where everything is 82%, but that's certainly not a deal killer. But anyway, that's just my thought. Is we can play hardball, and there is some negative things that can come out of that, but I think it's probably not too bad. Probably not too bad.
So the 90% would have been paid when?
90% was what the council originally said they wanted. They would have been paid this fiscal year, and they came back and said we can do 82%. And they ran a bunch of models with the net present value of money, and, you know, they're economists, you know, they ran it all, and they said 82 is break even for us, after that doesn't matter. So why would we pay early that first year and not just wait for it to hit us if it's gonna be something that's gonna be detrimental to the business anyway? And so 82% was what they came up with, their break even, where they actually had a small economic benefit to enter into the agreement. Because they're looking at the same thing, they're looking at $500,000 being gone in the first year that wouldn't have been gone in the first year, and what happens with that $500,000 over time? The $430,000.
You have a question?
I was actually thinking about the same thing that you were thinking. However, instead of the 82%, I was thinking more the 85%, because that's an additional $35,000, if I'm not mistaken.
You're talking on this one? Yeah, so I'll tell you this. When they came back, the first time they came back at 80. I told them there's no way we're gonna take it in there at 80, we need to get it to 85, and they came back and said 82 is basically the break even for us. After that, we don't really see any benefit to doing it. So we could go back to 85, I don't think they're gonna accept it.
Yes, sir?
Well, my question is, the businesses that have been annexed, do they have any right to come back and appeal or file for anything in search of a pilot agreement with us?
No, to answer your question briefly. No, and then the major consideration for this is what we cannot forget, and what's overriding in my mind is what Tinker mentioned previously, which is we went in there saying, with this proposal, it means zero investment in that 215 acres. We will not spend a penny of city resources on your property. And that's key, because that can eat up that $42,000 a year in no time. They know that if we go forward, they're not going to be asking for anything. And that is, with all our, to answer Councilman Jones's question, everybody else that is annexed have a right to that service plan, the prescribed statutory timetable, which is they have expectations which we need to meet. The difference here is there are none. Wastewater, water, whatever it is, fire suppression, fire pressure, provision of other utilities, zero. So if we had to, if we move forward and simply annex them and didn't execute the pilot agreement, then we have to deliver that service plan, similar to the other annexations, and the city must pay that cost. Now granted, the cost is going to be paid out of future tax revenue, but it's going to be offset by what you've got to pay. That $42,000 that you're looking at is $42,000 that you have to look at and weigh against what the city would have to pay to provide any utilities at all, any services, from year to year to year. And going in with this agreement means zero investment, and you know exactly what you're gonna get. Tink's absolutely right. The legislature's gonna meet in about 3 months. We're gonna find bills that, again, are going to be targeted towards, city authority, annexation, tax abatement agreements, the ability to raise revenue, the ability to raise taxes. We don't know what's going to happen. This provides some certainty. But whatever you want to do, obviously, it's your decision. But the benefit primarily is that it's going to take from 5 to 8 years before they get ahead on this agreement. So that first year payment is going to come a year early to the city, as opposed to annexing on the next agenda item, not getting it until the 2019 tax payment, which is going to be due in 2020. So that $430,000 or so, you won't get the next fiscal year or this fiscal year. So the city's going to be ahead until you get to year 5 to 8. But then you still have to look at how far ahead are you going to be in that 5 to 8 year period and beyond, because you're not investing a dime of city resources in providing services to that facility. That's one of the biggest keys for me, is going in, we said, and they understood and agreed, that the city will not be investing any money whatsoever in a service plan or any services whatsoever moving forward that the other residents who are annexed are entitled to.
I think we'd be ahead though, because we still have those 215 acres that we could
Yes.
look at, and that's potential revenues.
And Tink and I talked about that, because that gives you the ability not only to target another 215 acres elsewhere, but you get to target those property tax dollars and potentially sales tax dollars. And we discussed it, which could more than offset, what you're going to lose potentially. The net gain by the time you get to year 3, 4, 5, 6 would be far outweighed by moving in another direction and capturing other areas. And again, I go back to not having to invest anything. I'd hate for them down the road to say, okay, now that we're in, you annexed us, we're going to hold you to that service plan, or else we're going to ask for you to take us out. And the service demands out there might be very significant, but they certainly could exceed $42,000 a year. But that's an excellent point that we discussed, which is take that 215 acres, go elsewhere, and you're going to be able to offset almost immediately what you're going to lose in that 42 grand by being able to acquire additional tax value and sales tax value and going after another 215 acres.
Yes, sir.
The numbers certainly seem to add up, but just out of curiosity, do you have any rough numbers as to what would be saving on not providing those services?
No.
Construction cost and...
When we looked at construction costs on sewer to go to the end of Oak, it was about $2.1 million, if I remember right. And you'd have to have another lift station off over there, so you're probably $1 million to build sewer out there. They put their own fire suppression system in, but they can demand that we supply the water to it. We have a 2.5 inch line out there, take an 8 inch line, so that, we're gonna save a bunch by not having to require services, or having to provide services. And that 215 acres to make up $42,000 is probably gonna be pretty simple. That's a big chunk of land.
Yes, ma'am.
Tink, I have a question. The abatement schedule, is that something that's standard, or is that something that they came up with?
Actually, they offered one and we made them increase it. It was actually 10% lower on each level. And we told them it would have to be 10% higher on each level, at least before we even show it to you guys.
Okay.
That's pretty standard for what I've seen before.
Oh, that is? The one that you
No,
made
the
it
one
for?
that they gave us, and they
Oh.
actually agreed to 10% more in each year. Now, the 8th year, adding in, if you wanna go the 8th year to 82, that's something we can sure take back to them. It's 12% on whatever they build. If they build another facility the size of this one, that'd be significant. If they added a $4 or $5 million component to it, it wouldn't make that much difference, so. That's something you guys wanna do, is add that 8th year at 82%? I mean, we can take it back to
That's
the
a
seat.
fly in the ointment.
Yeah. I mean, tonight, you know, if you approve it like it is tonight, we know they're gonna accept it, so, you know,
Yeah.
there's a little bit more
Yeah.
finality to it.
And what they shared, they were very good about it. They shared that they have a number of these agreements in place, mostly along the Texas coast. So they base their expansion decisions on what the benefit is going to be from an investment standpoint, as it relates to the agreements they have in place in other locations. So that's part of what goes into them making decisions. What benefit do we get versus, I mean, what are we paying in additional taxes on our expansions based on where we do the expansions? And they also said they like to spread it geographically, but nonetheless, they still make the decision based on where the value is.
You know, and one thing we didn't really say, you know, in the discussions we had with them, Steph was very, they were very professional about the conversation, you know, they weren't trying to hide anything, or they, you know, they came in good faith. I mean, there was no doubt they came in good faith, and so we're gonna come up with the best proposal we come up with, and we'll give it to you. You know, first meeting, we basically sat there and said, this is what we need. They said, we'll take it to the board and see what we can do, and then, you know, he kept telling me, well, our economists are saying, you know, we're gonna have to come down a little bit, this. I mean, they were very open the whole process of trying to let us know where they were coming up with the answers and why they were coming up with the answers they were coming up with. So I was pretty happy with that. A lot of times you don't get that.
Yes, sir.
No, there's no more discussion, I make a motion.
Any further discussion? We entertain a motion to address this item, please.
Well, I move that we accept proposed payment in lieu of taxes agreement with South Texas Electric Cooperative as presented.
I second that.
All in favor, by show of hands, please. Motion carries unanimously.
Good job, team, keep going.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very good, very help.
Okay, therefore, we can bypass item C and move on to, correct?
Yes.
Move on to item D.
Yeah.
Discuss and consider and adopt resolution designating a management service provider for application and project implementation of 2019 to 2020 community development funds that are administered by the TDA. This is an action item. Motion to discuss, please.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
All in favor?
Madam Mayor, Council, at the previous meeting or meeting before, there's someplace one of you guys approved the city going out for RFP for administrative services for the 2019-2020 Community Development Block Grant Program. This is something we have to do every time. USDA changes this process a little bit every time. But we always have to go out for RFP at the start of it and get our service provider. So we issued the RFP on September 10th, closing on September 20th. It was sent out under the USDA rules. They give you a list of the people who are authorized in Texas to do this. You have to send it out to 3. We sent it out to 3. The 3 that we sent it out to were GrantWorks, Langford Community Management Services, and David J. Waxman Incorporated, with the deadline of response of 9/20/2018. On the date of response, we had one response from GrantWorks. You have the proposal in your packet, and we recommend that you accept GrantWorks as our management provider for the 2019-2020 CDBG grant program.
Any questions, guys? Anyone? Okay, will you entertain a motion to address this, please? You have a question? You say you haven't looked at it?
I haven't looked at it.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the request as recommended.
There is a motion on the table. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Made a second? All in favor? Well, just one moment. Let him, give him a chance to peruse it. Just 1 second.
We use GrantWorks, right?
That's the one we use every year. Okay. There has been a second. All in favor? Motion carries.
Madam Mayor, we have Raleigh here from Grantworks, if she wants to say anything real quick.
Good evening, Raleigh Cárdenas with Grantworks. This is a biennial competition. The funding is for the Community Development Block Grant Fund. It is administered by the Pearsall Department of Agriculture. It is a regional competition. We work with the city staff to make sure that we have a competitive application. It is limited to areas that are primarily low and moderate income. We've done projects in the past in those areas. The next step will be for Grantworks to assist the city in the request for qualifications, which would be for engineering services, who will provide us with, the city with the budget and the project selections based on discussions with staff. And the deadline is February 7th, 2019.
Thank you, ma'am.
We've got 3 times in a row we've received a grant, 4? 3. 3, yeah, so 3 consecutive cycles we've received a grant. So that's basically, we put $750,000 into the city infrastructure and it's cost us $150,000 by going through this. So, but this one will be at when we get a grant, and we will, we'll be at $1 million invested at a cost of less than $250,000.
Awesome. Okay, we're moving on to, we did vote, right? Yeah, we approved unanimously. And we did. Okay, we're moving on to item E, discussion and possible action regarding fee schedule and rental requirement for the Pearsall Convention and Civic Center. Action item, entertain a motion to discuss, please.
Motion to discuss?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Wishing you, Sarah.
Okay, Madam Mayor, Council, before you is an updated rental fee schedule and an updated rental agreement for the Civic Center. This was necessary because the old fee schedule had a kitchen in it, which we don't have anymore. We have a service area now. It had some requirements in the agreement that included a checklist. And there was a bunch of stuff that was on the checklist that we don't have out there anymore. There was new stuff that we have out there that we didn't have before. So we basically just updated the rental agreement to match what the facility is now. And looked at the prices on the center. Noticeably, the only thing that really changed out here, we added in some additional, because now we have a portable audio system out there that's available for somebody to use the facility if they want to use it. We have the projector, the screen and the projector we're about to put in out there. So we're going to projector screen, we're in an audio system, whatever else. We didn't have that stuff before, so it wasn't included on the agreement. And then we changed the cleaning and damage deposit to increase it because, well, it's a new facility and somebody goes out there and punches a bunch of holes in the wall or something, we gotta be able to recover the cost to actually fix it. And of course, the cleaning and damage deposit is refundable as long as they clean and don't get any damage. So, if you have any questions, I'll answer your questions or Phyllis or she can talk to you about it as well.
Is it necessary to charge those fees for the audio and screen? I'm saying because I believe that's the reason we renovated it, so that the community can better use out of it.
Not necessary. If you don't want to charge them, that's fine. I would suggest that we require a deposit on them. Because if they break that audio system or they break the projector, do something that, part of that was a replacement cost because the bulbs and those things are expensive. We tried to keep the cost low, but part of that was to make sure that we're able to recover enough money to replace bulbs, to replace whatever. But if you guys don't want to charge for it, you want to include it in the rental fee, that's your choice. We just need to make sure we include an additional deposit for it.
The other question I have is that this is for a one-day rental. Is there any provision here? I don't see it, but for a 2-hour rental, I know that somebody's rented it out there for 2 hours and they had to pay the entire day.
We've never had a provision for 2 hour rental.
No.
If that's something you want to have, you can have it.
And we need to have that in the event of a baby shower or wedding shower.
I'm thinking once you go a certain, like every 2 hours or so, charge a certain rate, or once it's half a day. Because I heard, I don't know if it's true, there was a baby shower out there for 2 hours. You had to pay the whole amount.
Okay, I'm wondering how long it took them to decorate and to clean up afterwards too, because a lot of times their event may last an hour or two, but they're there for 6 hours and putting up, and we can't rent it to anybody else while they're. So as long as we include setup time, if the 2 hours include setup time and cleanup time, great. I mean, that's, I don't have a problem with that, but if it's 6 hours to set up and clean up for a 2-hour event, then that's, they're usually the whole day.
Yeah, I understand that, but they may not need it the whole day,
Oh, that's
that's
fine.
that's what I'm saying, it may attract more.
If we did a half-day rental
customers.
lease.
If it was not locked in at $900 per month.
Okay, so it's 900 a day if it's the whole thing,
Whole
that's
thing,
inside and
yeah.
outside. If it's just the inside use for the day, it's 350. But whatever you guys want to do.
I have a question. Did we ever get a partition to break it in half?
No, that
Yeah.
was not one of the things that we approved. That was not approved in the renovation project. Something we could look at doing,
Madam Mayor?
because we do have outside doors on both sides now.
Exactly.
So you could come in from both sides and split it in half, and it wouldn't be able to split the kitchen or well, probably splitting it in half over the bathrooms, because there's one bathroom on one side and one on the other. Think about that. We could probably figure out a way, I mean, I'm sure there's a way to do it.
If I remember correctly in those discussions, part of the problem was the construction of the building didn't allow for putting partitions, the movable partitions
And
in.
it's lightweight. We did talk about that, the roof joists weren't strong enough to support it. But we could sure look at that. So if you want to add in a half day, if you want to amend this to add in a half day or whatever, then just come up with a number, put it in there.
I think it would be half of what's there. Half of
So,
what's there for the full
175
day.
for half day?
Yes.
I think that would help. Now, is the center completed? Is it done?
Yes, it's done. Yeah, the pictures I showed you guys with Tim on the floor, that was the last part.
We can go out and look at it.
We'll have,
We didn't do the add-ons, the fans, the break around. We need to think about that. 'Cause
I know, it's expensive, what we can do.
hopefully we'll find a whole bunch of money in the audits and we can go fix that.
That's what I'm saying. We find money, we need to dress it up. It's plain Jane.
And this is pretty competitive to everything else, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, around here, it's hard to match it up to anything around here because it's such a huge facility. We're talking about 13 acres of land with all the outside use too, and nobody else has anything even close to that.
I heard AB rents their facility out for like 500 a day, so when ours is 350 and then you got 100 if you use the kitchen area, that's 450, it's still cheaper than AB.
Is it really $500 a day, or is that something you've heard?
It's something I heard from a reliable source, that rather rent from us than there because it's cheaper. They were talking somewhere.
300.
But I did have a call from somebody who wanted to rent it just for 2 hours for $50 an hour. And so we didn't have it set up that way, I said we don't do that. It would have to be a full day.
I think it's either half day or full day.
Yeah, half day would
And
help a lot.
and we need to define half day too, it's talking 4 hours, right?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the fee schedule as presented with a provision for a half-day rental, 4-hour, for $175. And if they exceed that, then it's the full day.
And the rental agreement, and the updated rental agreement,
Yes.
But the audio visual
Oh,
is
yeah.
just a deposit?
what do you want to do on auto, should we make those
Deposit.
deposits?
Deposit.
Yes, my motion to keep the deposit the same.
That would be a deposit, right? They get it
Yes.
back.
Yes, they get it back.
So if they walk, they're gonna lose their deposit. Okay.
And we're help you.
They're gonna lose quite a bit. There's a motion on the table. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Alrighty, item F. Discussion and possible action regarding the city holiday and pay schedule. Action item. Entertain a motion to discuss, please.
Motion to discuss.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Discussion will
Madam
proceed.
Mayor, Council, the attached guys have in your packet there. That's our standard pay schedule, and the holidays are provided for in the personnel policy. But the pay schedule, the pay dates are not provided for in the policy, so each year we have you guys approve this at the start of the year. So we have a set schedule. Until we get the new personnel policy done, we're gonna have to do this.
So this just has different dates.
Just, yeah, it's the same thing we do every year, just different dates, different, based on whenever the Wednesdays and Fridays are. And whatever dates the holidays fall on. And those holidays are the ones that are in the personal policy.
Okay. No further discussion? Entertain a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that we accept the city holiday and pay schedule.
There's a motion on the table. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item G, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance number 2018-10-02, amending the adopted budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2018. Action item, motion to discuss, please.
Motion to discuss.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Madam Mayor and Council, so you have two exhibits in front of you. Exhibit A is a amendment to the hotel motel fund. Basically what this one is as we closed out the fiscal year, we had money left in the line item for the capital improvements to make the last payment on the Civic Center, but the last payment wasn't made before the end of the year, so that went back to reserves and we didn't have it budgeted for this year. So it's an item that was budgeted in last year, but it's gonna be paid out this year, so we have to amend the budget and have it in a line item so we can make that payment. And so this is the retainage on the Civic Center, so once the project is all signed off on, we can make the last payment on the renovations at the Civic Center. And then the second, exhibit B, is the money for the insurance claim. Again, budget year ended, so that rolled into reserves. And so we have to budget it. We didn't know exactly what it was gonna be, and we didn't want to put a number in the budget that wasn't right, so we didn't put, we put a low number, rather than going over. So this actually would increase that amount by $126,809.12, which is what we had left over last year that needs to be available for expenditure this year. So, stuff that was left over from last year, the winter reserves that's being rebudgeted this year so we can make the payments.
So does this amount, the 126, does that cover the 3 months?
This is the insurance pay on the neighborhood center.
Oh, okay.
And this is insurance pay on the neighborhood center. We budgeted $530,000 because we thought we were gonna make one more payment on the park before then. That payment wasn't made, because we didn't get the stuff in time to make the payment. So now that payment will be made this year. So that money was left over and went back into the reserve fund, now needs to be budgeted for this year. So it's not new money, it's money that was there. Both of them were money that was sitting there, we just need the payments to come in, the invoices didn't come in. And once September 30th hits, that money goes, it reverts to the reserves. So it's got to be.
I have a question. In regards to the premium on the, for the neighborhood center, of course, it's no longer there, so we're not making that kind of payment anymore, right?
On the TML insurance? No, we're not paying on the TML insurance, no.
So that is also, I mean, how much did we budget for that insurance premium?
Okay, this is the insurance check that we got when the neighborhood center burned down.
That's a check, it's not actually the premium.
Right. This is the money we got back from TML, and we had it in those line items, we put it in last year, and we made payments on the park and on the other stuff that we did, and then we had money left over at the end of the year, we ended up having $656,809.12 on warranty at the end of the year, but we only budgeted $530 for this year, so there was a difference of $126,809. So this is just to put it in there so it's available for expenditure at the park or across the street or whatever. Will it make better since that time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alrighty. No further discussion? You need to entertain a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2018-1002, amending the adopted budget for the fiscal year.
There's a motion on the table. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item H, discussion and possible action considering RFP RFPs for city's insurance agent of record. This is an action item. May I entertain a motion to discuss, please?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Madam Mayor, Council, so before I start on this, the process of the insurance is rolling exactly how the council asked for it to go. We're waiting on the numbers to come in, the loss run numbers, all that stuff. But I had the groups that were here for the last meeting when we talked about the insurance, and there's some of them here tonight. They came in and spoke to me a couple of days after this happened. I've had a couple other insurance agents call and talk to me about this as well. Back to the question that we asked, that we talked about before this whole thing, was about having an insurance agent of record for the city, and about doing an RFP or an RFQ for an agent of record and letting that insurance agent do all the work, so that it's not something that we're saddled with here. And they came in and asked why we didn't do that. They thought it was a good idea. The other people I talked to, of course, Bobby thinks it's a good idea as well. So what you have in front of you is a proposal to seek an insurance agent of record, so that when we get the run loss numbers, we get all that stuff, that agent of record then could do all the work and get us, make sure that we get the best deal. So we have somebody that understands insurance that's actually working that RFP process, so that we can get the best deal that we can get on our insurance. I think one of the things that we talked about was, when we do engineering services, we do, anything where they're a licensed person, we normally do an RFP or an RFQ process to find who's the most qualified. And we kind of talked about that, and insurance agents are licensed by the state of Texas, but they all get the license the same way. But I think the discussion that I had with the individuals that are here in the audience tonight, there's so much more that we can find in an RFQ by doing an insurance agent of record, where we can see that once we get an insurance for our employees, we're getting the best service that they can get as well too. What do they provide beyond? We're looking at what else do they provide beyond that license that says that they're an insurance agent. What kind of support do they provide to our employees? What kind of support do they provide to our HR department? What support do they provide to the council, to the staff? What are all these other things that they're going to bring if they're the person that we pick as an insurance agent of record? So I looked at a number of proposals. They sent me some. I got some from some other places, looked at a bunch, put one together that appeared. There's a lot of things that are very common in all of them, because that's what everybody's looking for. What else are you going to give us besides just providing insurance? So it's pretty easy to come up with one that was very inclusive and would get us to the point where, if the council chose to select an agent of record and do it that way, it would be easier. We would get the most value out of that person. So I put this on here tonight. It's something you can consider. It can run at the same time as we're still continuing to do this other work. You guys can look at it. We may get 50 agents, we may get 3, who knows. But then you guys can sit down and look at that and say, wait a minute, we got all these people, here's what they provide. Do we want to just let them take this one loss number and do the work for us to get us what we need? Or not pick anybody and just continue going the way we're going. So it's there for you guys to consider. Again, we don't have anybody that works here in the city, obviously, that's a health insurance expert. It takes a lot to be a health insurance expert. We have one councilman out there I know that knows that. There's so many ins and outs, and the law changes all the time, and it's very hard to keep up with all that stuff, plus try to keep up with everything else too. This is a process that can open. If nothing else, we have 3 or 4 of them. You guys can pick the top 3 or 4. They can come in and give you guys a presentation about the services that they can provide, and maybe that's to help train some people here too about what we should be looking for as well. So it's out there to consider. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer your questions.
How is this different from the Newkirk contract? What's going on?
There was not an RFP process for the Newkirk contract. There was no process. He came in here, went into that room back there and signed the contract. There was no opportunity for anybody else to do it.
So would this be a contract?
Well, you can structure that any way you want to structure it. When you do a request for qualifications, you can do it as a contract. There's a number of different ways you can structure it. You have a structure right here that's a month to month, basically, or minute to minute. So you can structure that any way you want to. You don't have to end up with a structure like what we had before. That structure was developed by the insurance agent before he walked in the door. So you don't have to end up with that structure.
And what is this gonna cost us?
It won't cost us anything. No.
Oh, it's not gonna cost us anything?
It's supposed to save us money.
It should, theoretically, it should save us a bunch of money.
That's what we're hoping for.
That's the idea. The These guys are gonna know how to save money, whoever you select. If we get 40, we get 5, whatever. But if we get a good agent to come in and apply for this, and you guys select a good agent to be the agent of record, it's gonna save us money because they know what they're doing to where in those little, like, that marketplace, you gotta work in that marketplace to understand that marketplace.
So this person is gonna be an agent that sells insurance themselves?
More than likely, yes.
So it, would they be putting in bids as well?
Well,
They're gonna be,
your insurance agent of record is gonna do the RFP, they're gonna go get all the bids from all the insurance companies.
but they'll be able to submit a bid themselves?
Well, they'll submit all the bids because you selected them, but you're selecting them based on all the other services they're gonna provide with it. So you're, Robert, why don't you try to explain it better than I can?
Well, see, the agent of record would actually go out for us, actually get all the quotes for us. We wouldn't have to worry about, so, I mean, I think it's a good deal, to be quite honest with you. The only thing is, what I didn't care for was the other contract was that it was pre-made, he made it, and we couldn't go anywhere else without his acknowledgement and so on and so forth. And if we sign something like this, I mean, I would want to exercise that, hey, we can go out if we want. I mean, we can break this contract when we want. I understand the commissions. Of course, you get paid commission until the end of the policy period. I mean, I understand that, but in the interim, if we don't like your services, then we're going to go out and look for somebody else, That's basically, and the other hand, we were tied to this individual, which...
For up to a year, depending on when you talk to them. So, but again, and while we talked about this, the first time we talked about this, this is where our job is to make sure that contract is structured to benefit the city. And those contracts from before weren't structured, none of them were structured to benefit the city, they were structured to benefit the contractors. And so, the contracts that we've been involved in have all been structured to benefit the city, where you can get out when you need to get out. And this gives us a chance to get a fresh start and do this the way that most cities do it, but do it the right way and not do it the back way. If that makes sense.
I'm Steve Brooks with Maple Brooks. Just to mention the process, I've been 25 years doing this. Not only am I an insurance agent, but I have a consulting license in the state of Texas for insurance. So there's 2 separate licenses there that you're dealing with. But request for qualification, you're looking for the most qualified person to handle your RFP process. So what you're going to get out of that, amongst many other things, is number one, you're going to get all markets that are available to come in and say, hey, we're going to give you some numbers based on your claims versus premiums we talked about last time. Once that happens, though, you're also going to get some other ancillary services, such as an enrollment, electronic, or a enrollment that is done via paper, ad drops for your city to lighten up the load on your HR department. You're going to get bilingual services. There's all kinds of different service sets within that. And so I would just say if somebody does come in and give you a good one-year rate, and they do all the work and do the enrollments, which is the bulk of the work, and then they continue servicing them, that most people are going to ask for your contract. Because you go and work and say, hey, let's dig that ditch, and I dig a ditch. And then you say, well, we buried the pipe, but we don't want it anymore. So it makes it hard for you to contest that. So most people are going to want a one-year contract at least. And then after that, you can do a 30-day out at any time. But if you vet your RFQ process correctly, you shouldn't have these type of problems. And what that means is, hey, I got reference letters from surrounding school districts, surrounding public entities that have done business with us and are happy. So anyway, I just wanted to cover that.
Thank you.
So are we taking action tonight?
Yeah.
So how do we judge?
So what you would be doing is you would be authorizing us to go out for RFP.
Okay.
And then we'll get this out right away, so by the next meeting, we'll have a list of whatever, and you guys can pick whoever you want to come present to you. You can look in the packets.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and go out for RFP for the city's insurance agent of record.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item I, discussion and possible action to reset a date for the city council retreat. action item. Entertain a motion to discuss, please.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
All in favor?
So, Madam Mayor, Council, obviously, the retreat that we had scheduled didn't happen, and so this is on here so that you guys can set a date. For the retreat in your packet, I included a copy of the agenda that I put together for the last one, just so you can see what was on there, if anybody has anything else that they would like to see added to it, or something they think needs to be changed, between now and then, just let me know, and we'll make some adjustments.
Madam Mayor, it is a workshop format, so can we talk about other things as they pop up, or does it have to be posted?
We can put an all-inclusive in there as well,
Okay.
and I think we have I had another in there, but it is a workshop, so it's no action, so that's all.
Okay. I'm good. What dates work for everybody?
I kind of got the feeling from from the conversation that we had in council that everybody wanted to look at doing it right after the November election. Or that was one of the things that came up, was right after. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 Saturdays between now and then, so.
November the 10th.
It's the day of the tournament.
November the 3rd will be right before.
That's Veterans Day.
Veterans Day's on the 12th.
When is,
It's a
Market
3-day
Day?
weekend.
Market Day is November 3rd.
3rd? Okay, so we can do the 3rd or the 10th. So you're looking at the 27th,
27th.
Thanksgiving.
no, October 27th,
Oh,
or
Yeah,
November.
no, that's my birthday.
November
17th.
I know somebody don't want to do it on November 17th.
It's my birthday.
November.
November 17th. I'm not being an old child.
We want it on November 7th.
What's wrong with October 27th?
We did this before, because we did it in 2 evenings.
In 2 evenings? Yeah,
we
through
did
the
it 2
week?
evenings before.
I don't want that. I'd rather
Why?
do it one day because if we start conversations, I don't want to cut off because time's up.
We get to vote on that.
How about the 23rd and 24th?
That's Thanksgiving, of October?
October.
Oh,
Next
okay.
week.
23rd is Sunday.
October.
October 23rd.
Oh, that's September.
Not Thursday,
That's Tuesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, I can do a Tuesday, Wednesday. Those are my, okay.
As long as we don't cut things short.
We got here till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll split the agenda in half, so that we get halfway in then.
Okay.
I'm gonna be out. I mean,
I can't do the 24th.
What about the 30th and 31st?
What about, it's Halloween?
I can't because I have to go to Georgetown too. Yeah, I
That's my sister and my
the
daughter.
29th and the 30th,
What about the
Monday and Tuesday.
Tuesday?
At 7?
The 22nd and 23rd, Monday and Tuesday, next week.
I don't get off
I'm
till 8,
gonna
but
be
you can
out.
start. I'll get over there.
29th and 30th, we'll be back.
I'll be back.
So the 29th and 30th.
Monday, Tuesday night.
Monday, Tuesday.
He can start, I work late, but I can get over here when I'm done.
What day do we set for the next meeting with the building?
We did.
Building Saturday?
They were in a hurry to get out.
County was up there.
Billy was having another meeting they forgot to tell us about.
But what can we take back to the,
Well, I told her that Get rid of the microphone, she'll get that straightened out. Good thing Robert wasn't there this time.
yeah.
He loves
Okay, so what date, I'm sorry again?
29th, 30th.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
What day is that?
Monday and Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday. 2 weeks from now.
So 29th and 30th, we'll look at
29th and 30th.
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's a little bit. Sit around.
And we aren't gonna be cut off.
6 o'clock.
Oh, at 6?
6
Can we do
o'clock?
6? Yeah, I'll do 6.
Oh,
I don't get off till
seven.
8, so I'll probably miss the whole thing.
What about on Tuesday?
Tuesday I get off at 5.
So about 7 o'clock on
So
Monday,
7
6
is
o'clock on
okay.
Tuesday.
Can you make 7?
7 on Monday, Tuesday can be 6.
I'm in.
For 7 on
7 p.m. on
Monday.
Monday, 6 p.m. on Tuesday.
Yes.
We have a market day meeting on Monday. Sorry. Mr. Richie?
I'm sorry. I don't know.
We have our final market day meeting on Monday
At what time?
at 6.
You better talk fast, David.
So 7 o'clock each day.
6
Monday.
o'clock.
So 7 o'clock each day.
An hour.
Well, we got done in 40 minutes last time.
Dave Ritchie got the floor and you were done in 40 minutes.
I had to pull.
And where's it gonna be? Library or here?
Library.
Library. So
Just
7 on Monday, 6 on Tuesday, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. 6 on Tuesday, 7 on Monday.
Good, you guys motion.
And open topics, right?
Open topics will be on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, okay.
I'll change other open topics.
Yes.
Okay,
But you said it was
we need to entertain a motion to address those dates, include those dates. And time?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we set the city retreat dates to October 29th at 7 o'clock at the library, follow up on October 30th at the library at 6 o'clock of this year.
Okay.
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, this is for discussion only regarding utilities surcharge.
Madam Mayor, Council, I mentioned this in the last meeting, I just threw this on, so I could, each of you could get this form out. Copies for this.
That's enough.
Okay, so everybody has their packet, we don't need a copy.
We have your computer. For what?
Yeah, I know that it was broken 2 months ago.
While she's making the copies, I had Josie give it to the ladies up front, and we printed out a summary of all of the utility accounts that we have. So it gives a number of, it gives everything, so gas, water, sewer, trash, whether they're commercial, residential, what size they are, whatever else. There's been a lot of conversation over the last year about trying to restructure those surcharges somehow. So I wanted everybody to be able to look at it and get an idea of what we have, because we talked about trying to do something where we maybe make the surcharge on commercial higher, so it reduces the surcharge on the small person who's just in a basic bill every month, and try to level it out somehow where that surcharge is closer to being based on usage and not actually being based on just like having an account. So she's gonna give you a copy of it, it's in your packet, but, so just for instance on water, we have roughly 3,000 accounts total. And there's two things in particular that I want you to think about as you're looking at this sheet, as you try to figure out another way to maybe try to do this. One, if you look at the water, the first column there, the first line, the far right, 3 columns, you can see there's 2,956 accounts total. 2,477 of those are inside the city limits. Total is inside the city limits. Total, there's almost 500 of those accounts are outside the city limits. So it would appear to me that since the city residents are paying city taxes, that maybe the people outside should be paying a larger surcharge.
And they're not annexed?
No.
And their rates,
There'll be like five or seven of these that were on here, yeah, that were homes that were on here. But the majority of those, I mean, there's 470 houses outside of town, or commercial entities or houses outside of town that are getting city water service. Now, they do pay 1.5 times the rate, they pay a higher rate than everybody else does. But they're not paying for the infrastructure, except for the surcharge. It's not gonna have their city taxes, they're not having to pay for the bond on city taxes or anything else. So maybe one of the things we need to look at is increasing those surcharges outside the city limits. And maybe looking at an increase in the surcharge on commercial. And there you got 400 commercial users too. So we could probably look at restructuring that somehow, where we take in the same amount of revenue, because we have to be careful. If you remember, when we did the surcharges, we had a short period of time to figure out, we took total number of accounts, figured out how much money we needed to pay half of that bond, and that's how we came up with the number. And so we had to be careful to make sure we collect enough to make a payment on the bond. But we may be able to restructure it in a way where the commercial businesses are paying more because they're obviously using more. Or they're making money off our city water, it's not survival. Or the people outside are starting to carry a little bit more of the weight on this.
We need to be careful with the commercials because I know that they pay higher utility rates and so forth and so forth. And so that's one of the comments that's been made by the local business people, is that they pay higher rates in all cases. And in some cases, they really don't have much more service than the regular residential service. So I was, when I was looking at this, like last year, whenever, I was thinking more in terms of consumption. Those that consume more water, then I was gonna have the rate, the charge, surcharge would be, it would correlate to the amount of consumption. So then if those that use less water would pay the lower surcharges versus those that use more water. I think there's a way to do that. I'm still working on it, but I believe I've almost got it done. In terms of there has to be there is a way to use some variables in the function in algebra. But what I mean is numbers, like what kind of revenue comes in.
Okay, so, of course, every month that's a different number, you know, and so we're gonna have to, we're probably gonna look at a year's average or a 5-year average or something versus that, because if we overshot that number, well, we'd be in trouble. Because then we'd be short on that payment. That was the reason we used account numbers, and tried to tie to account numbers to make sure we made that revenue mark. Because if we come short on that revenue mark, then we default on that month at that.
Yeah.
So we would have to be very careful, or over conservative, you know, over conservative to make sure that we, you know, and what we, I mean, we could look at that and set that rate for a year and shoot high to make sure that we made it, and then go back and look and be able to maybe reduce it a little bit after that. But I mean, this is just, I mean, I know this is, I hear, I've heard this from, you know, almost every one of you about, you know, the little lady that's living on Social Security that's paying the same amount as, you know, as any of these businesses, the big businesses we have here in town. We gotta do something to try to make that fair. So I just threw this out there. This is a conversation we need to keep having until we figure it out. Because we talk about it, and then it kind of gets put off for a little bit, and then we talk about it, and it kind of gets put off for a little bit. And every year in the budget, it comes up again, you know, what can we do about the surcharges? It's like, well, until we come up with a better plan, we can't do anything, because we gotta make that payment. So maybe this is something we need to trot on a lot harder over the next few months and try to come up with.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no way, like, to exempt these elderlies from it? From the surcharge?
Well, you could, but then you have to increase everybody else's surcharge, because it's based on accounts, and we did exactly what we had to do to make that revenue, to make that payment on the bond. So if you turn around and exempt 350 or 400 people because they're over the age of 65 or 75 or whatever age you pick, now we're short that revenue every month, and it's gotta come from someplace else. Because we barely, with what we charge on the surcharges, we barely collect enough each year to make that portion of the payment. So, you know, we went back in, we went back in and pushed the senior discounts. The people that came in, what most of those people saw was a discount more than what their surcharge was, so they actually, they saved quite a bit when they did that. But yeah, we'd have to be, if we did that, we'd have to increase everybody else's. That's the only way, the way it's structured right now. Unless we came up with something else, we would have to increase everybody else's.
Madam Mayor. So if we leave the surcharges because they are part of the bond payment and target our contract with ACI, which had agreed to help the senior citizens, I think that would be suffice. That would, because we just got to get him in here to agree on the percentage of amount that he would help our senior citizens, because he has said yes.
So that is one of the surcharges, of course. And that was a 350.
But it'll be money from, he's going to take less.
Right.
Yes,
But that'll help. I mean, every discount we get helps.
50%, I think.
No, that's why we push the water and gas, you know, for the seniors. So we come in here with all the forms so we can get you a discount, so more than offsets, more than offsets the surcharge for the seniors.
Yes.
So what's that payment amount, Josie, roughly, total?
450.
450. And we do, so our total number, and it's charged on the bill, so that's basically divided by 3,000, is that kind of the rough math? But that's how many bills go out a month, total of 3,000, less, a little less.
Yeah, half of it.
So 450,000 even?
Well, then you have a separate surcharge on trash. There's one on water and sewer, there's one on trash.
Okay, so 150.
And that's for every account.
For every account, yes.
Yeah,
So if somebody has 3 accounts, that's.
They get charged 3 times.
It's already here.
yeah.
That's correct.
And what is it, $6?
$650 and $350. Yeah.
I have a
650 on the regular and 350 on garbage.
Do we have a count on how many elderly accounts we have?
I have a number off the top of my head, but yeah, we can get it pretty easy.
Would you be able to get that soon?
I have it, I just.
He's been answering for it too.
Okay, let's get her done.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, I think someone's supposed to come talk to us about the water meters, or the readers, or,
Please.
Yes.
because there's discrepancy in bills, I mean, there is.
It's a car payment for me.
It's, we hear it a lot. I usually pay $50, now I'm paying $350. I don't know what the discrepancy might be, but
$300.
we need to kind of look at it.
We Josie deals with those every day. We had, I'll give you an example, we had one where somebody had 2 meters, 1 meter was not working the way it was supposed to be working, so they just quit paying their bill. And we finally figured out what was going on with the meter that was wrong, and so we credited them that, and they got mad because we didn't credit the one that was working right. They wanted the $3,000 credit on the one that was working right too, so no, you use that water, you're gonna pay for that water. And so, I mean, we see a lot of those that come in here, and those are the people that go complain about, why I got this huge bill, I don't know where it came from. Well, because you've been using water for 12 months and not making a payment, that's where it came from. But we do get, every once in a while, you know, sometimes, especially with the skater reading that we have with the nuclear football, and it reads them automatically. You know, if they've got a vehicle parked over it, it won't read correctly, or if they've got something in the way, it won't read correctly, and so it'll show 0 consumption for that month, and the next month, so they get the flat bill. Then the next month, their cars move, because they're not supposed to park over the meters, but they do. The next month, their car's moved, and it actually reads it, and so there's 2 or 3 months of consumption on there instead of it reading right every month. And because of the units of consumption we have, you can have a 0 consumption month, and that's not abnormal, because you haven't hit that mark to move up to the next level. So I think part of it's gonna be educating them too. We did meet with Johnson Controls, at the TML conference, had a long conversation with them. They'll be here Thursday morning, or Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock, so that we can sit down. I printed out, he sent me every document there was from that whole process. It's about a 2-inch binder worth of stuff. I printed it out and started looking at it today. They had some interesting comments about what happened when they came in here and did the contract, about the issues that came up during that and what happened that was wrong with it. But at the end of the day, basically what we told them is, I don't care what happened in 2012, I care what's happening right now. And if you guys have the contract, you come fix it, or we're gonna let everybody know that you're worthless. And so they go, well, yeah, we'll come fix it. So they'll be here this Thursday, and we're gonna get started on that process. At the time, the people the readers, there was only one person that was allowed to be in the room when the training happened for the readers. And then that person's not here anymore, so the people that are reading have never been trained to do the readings. So it was a whole mess. There was only 2 people allowed in the room when the contract was negotiated. The procurement, as we know, was done, there was a mistake made in the procurement that came up with the auditors when I first got here, and we got that resolved. So there was a whole bunch of, everything the city was supposed to do in 2012 and 2013 related, they didn't do. And so then there was no follow-up, and of course the contractor was like, well, we didn't know what to do. But we'll get them in here once we get resolution on why the football's not working accurately all the time. Get our employees trained to run that thing right and to program that thing right, and get everything set and working properly. Then they're coming to a council meeting, and they're going to go through the whole thing with you guys, what happened, the whole process. So we'll have them at a council meeting.
And how long is that contract?
10 years.
10 more?
I think it's 10 total.
That would only 10 for 30.
I think that's like 3/4 of the way to the line, and I haven't got there yet. I put the contract, I said the contract. But there's always been some confusion on how that replacement's supposed to be done, and Josie spent a bunch of time talking to him about how that replacement's supposed to be done. And Johnson Controls is telling us that replacement's not being done the way it's supposed to be done either. So we're gonna get all that ironed out. starting Thursday. And we're not letting them off the hook until they fix it.
So the term is 10 years.
On that budget, the budget line item we have for the valve replacement, I think it is 10 years. So it should have about, I think we're about halfway down. I think the total time is 10. And that was gas and water meters both. They did both. So we'll get all that worked out, figured out.
And meters were purchased with the wrong funds or something like that?
Well,
That part of
we
it?
couldn't tell where the meters were purchased from because the purchase contract, Johnson Controls says the purchase contract is set up to be done through a cooperative like Byboard, which is where we buy most of our stuff. The city, Johnson Controls joined Byboard, the city was supposed to join Byboard, the finance director never did the paperwork for the city to join. But the payment was made, not Byboard, to this other one, whatever the cooperative was. The payment was made to the cooperative without the city ever being a member of the cooperative because the city said, well, Johnson Controls is, but we didn't pay Johnson Controls, we paid the cooperative. So that made a mess in the paper trail, and they're trying to figure out whether it came out of, because we had the 2012 bond and the 2012 loan, and the bond was very specific on what could be bought out of it and what couldn't, and it didn't include one or the other, gas or water, I don't know which one it was. But we were finally able to track it back enough to satisfy the auditors, whether it was right or not. I don't know, because there wasn't enough paperwork in there to figure it out. But it satisfied the auditors, and we presented enough of a trail that they didn't make us pay back the bond. Which was my job at that time, was to make sure we didn't have to come up with $2.1 million. So that part's all straightened out. We just need to get the program working when it's supposed to be working. And have them come and explain it to you guys too.
So what happens if they've been read wrong, like all this time?
Well, it can't be read wrong, because when we have continuous months where there's zeros, we go manually read them. And so a lot of times we'll have to manually read one because somebody's been parked over it for 3 or 4 or 5 months, and that's when they get the bill that shows all that usage.
But is that a legitimate excuse that there's a car there in front? Can we do
Well,
that?
the whole reason the city invested all that money was so it didn't take 5 guys all month to read the meters, that one guy could go around and read them.
So if the guy sees a car parked there, he's just gonna try to go through the car?
He doesn't know. Yes, he goes by it, reads it, but it doesn't show it on that thing. They have to bring it back and download it before they know. And then, say, okay, if something looks wrong, we need to reread here, 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 and here. But just because it shows 0 usage doesn't mean, because a lot of them will show 0 for the month because they didn't hit that next mark.
Is it possible, is it possible to get the wrong account on someone's bill? Because that's what a residence only happens. If they came up here and talked to the city and they had the wrong account on their bill, and we straighten that out.
The wrong account on their bill,
Right.
the wrong meter on their bill.
Right, the wrong meter on their bill.
Does that happen? I haven't heard that.
According to the resident, that's what happened. She was happy because it got straightened out.
Well, I got straightened out, but I didn't hear about it.
But is that possible?
Anything's possible. It'd be hard, but not, anything's possible. Somebody typed in a wrong number, and yeah. Good.
So what's the process for a reread? Like if you ask them to reread it, do you have to follow up or does the city call them?
If you ask,
Like if you ask, like I asked for a reread because my October bill was higher than my July bill.
if you ask for a reread, did you got a work order?
I just paid the bill and I asked for a reread because I was like, I didn't water my yard in September. It rained all of September.
Okay, but you gotta remember, you're billed for 2 months prior.
It's 2 months?
Yeah, it's 2 months prior, so that was your July bill. Your July usage.
Well, that
That's
makes
why.
sense. I thought it was only a month.
Oh, that's why.
It's only.
Because mine were
It's 2 months.
$275. I'm like, really? Yeah, that's what I paid. Wow. That makes sense now.
So on this paper, what are those percentages?
Oh, so the percentages are just numbers I put, that was a percentage that were outside the city limits.
This is.
The one that you got in your packet doesn't have a lot, we clean them off, but when I first started working on this and thinking about it, that was percentages that were outside.
Since we're talking utilities, is the situation with meter gas, is that cleared up? Are we?
We're working on it. I'll put that on the next agenda. Actually, make that an item for the next agenda, because that's kind of way off from your surcharges. Talking about the budget situation, but it's too far off our topic. Okay, the council requires us to bring it up without the next agenda.
Okay, moving on to discussion regarding update on intersection project.
Motion to discuss.
No, these are just discussions. No action.
What are you,
They have a progress on those 7 sections, and they have a little bit, right now they have really, yeah, they got Medina 1581, of course it's raining, I mean, they're not working day, but they got those done. We got, what, 14?
On the 23rd Street.
Yeah, we got 4 on 23rd, and Willow, and Florida and Willow.
Okay.
Need to be done. They're doing pretty good. Everything's on schedule, and the work's been done. It's good.
I have a question. So who's doing the work? Is it y'all doing the work, or is it the contractors, or, because I didn't see the equipment out there.
It's a contractor.
They came to an agreement for hauling off some of the material that wasn't part of the contract. So with that, they're using their backhoe, and the contractor's loading them up and they're hauling it off.
so we can save some money?
So, yeah, they came to an agreement to use their equipment to haul off the material that was not part of the contract. So he's removed that material.
So are we getting credit for that?
No,
We're
actually, we're not paying for that.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the contract.
It wasn't part of the contract?
No.
You hauled it off?
To haul it off, yeah.
It wasn't part of the
But
contract?
we're actually, but we wanted to keep it because we're gonna probably be reusing it. So, yeah, so we wanted to haul it off.
Yeah.
And Rudy's made some adjustments as far as the intersections that we're getting done. Some of them have gotten worse than others, and he brought it up to our attention, and Mr. Jackson and I agreed that they should be adjusted, so
Adjusted and done.
there's 4 different intersections that have been done.
How many total intersections?
I believe there's about 14 or 15 of them already done, and there's like 6 more to get done with this second contract.
And if you guys have seen any of them there.
I've seen them, and I'm glad to see that they were actually scraped out and hauled off, you know, the top pavement, which is what I thought we were gonna get on the other streets, but we didn't. But I noticed the work, the work is, it looks like it's done much better, especially on Willow Street. That was all, it looks like it's gonna hold up. And, yeah, did a good job on this.
I've got a comment. On those things, intersections, I noticed with this rain, there's water sitting in the intersections, like it wasn't to elevation or what have you, but now you have a big puddle of water there where y'all replaced that asphalt.
Which intersection was it?
The intersection on Willow and Medina Street, that was full. There was like 2 others that I saw that, I mean, you can tell the indention where the water's sitting now. I mean, it's now sitting water, it's not running or anything, it's just sitting there. So, you know, we're gonna have potholes here soon.
We need a slight pitch to that.
Yeah, maybe another, some more asphalt on there just too.
A slight pitch.
Okay.
So I can look out.
Yeah, and we'll keep looking at it. Yeah, he's really good about fixing stuff like that. There was one intersection where we had no idea what the grades were. He fixed it, and then he told me, hey, I gotta go back and rework it because it's still holding water.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's good.
So if you see one, just submit.
Okay, I'll do that.
You said Willow Medina? South Willow?
Oh,
Do one more, right?
do we have anyone out there that can look at that? Instead of relying on us to tell you?
Well, I'm not on this project,
Okay.
I'm just helping out Rudy as much as possibly can, but I'm gonna get out here tomorrow, and I can look at it. Plus, Rudy's been real good about looking at all the intersections, so, yeah, I'm sure he'll let me know.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know at TML, we had, spoken to some of the asphalt people that were there for the potholes. Are y'all, going to like, try to get some of that asphalt that they have there that can be, used with water, right?
It was activated
That's-
with water.
We had this discussion.
Yeah, we had this, so last
TML.
year, David and I spent a bunch of time talking to them, and we had them come down here and do some puddles with that material. It lasted about 2 weeks.
Really?
It did not hold up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, we're about to, once we get, now that we've got the budget over with and TML's over with and we're getting back to normal, we're going to, at the next council meeting also, we'll talk about, coming up with we're gonna come up with a different plan for how we use the puddle patcher. You know, we went to the work order thing, and of course, so it's scattered all over the place, so they're driving by 15 potholes to get to one that there's a work order on, because they have to have the work orders done within so many days. And then they drive past 15 more, getting to another one someplace on the other side of town, because there's a work order already for that. And we're spending too much time going back and forth and not enough time working on stuff. So I think we're gonna come up with a different system and not do potholes through the work order system anymore. We'll do those a different way, so we're maximizing the time and not trying to meet deadlines that were established by the council on the work order policy, because it's too much running and trying to make sure we're getting them done within 5 days. One of the other things too, they started trying to, as part of the budget process last year, they started trying to minimize the amount of asphalt they were using out of that machine, and so from square cutting to cleaning up what was there. And so part of the whole concept of this was the square cut potholes, everybody would know who did it. Everybody would know that it was done with the pothole patcher. So now there's potholes out there that are being patched, and nobody knows that they were done by the pothole patcher now. So they don't see a bunch of square patches, so it's never out there. And so we're gonna go back to a square cut, and we're gonna make sure that if it's done with the patcher, it's gonna be square cut, and everybody's gonna know that it's done with the patcher. I think that'll help with the conversation out there of people saying, well, it's not doing anything when it's working every time we can work it. And we're doing them like they were done before, and so after a week, everybody's drove over them, and you can't tell it was recently patched, it's not square. So it's just not working. So we're gonna make sure that publicly people know what's being repaired with that machine.
Well, and I don't know if it's about the square, but I noticed that all the ones that have been fixed, that I've looked at, when they use a tamper and they pack it down pretty good, they hold up a lot better than when they don't.
Sure. It's gotta be oiled, it's gotta go through the hole. And if you square cut it, it binds better too. Because it gives it something to bind to, and it works better. So we're gonna go back to square cutting.
So is that gonna limit us, because using that square cutting, now we can only do so many? Is that the idea, is to cut down on the number of potholes we're gonna fix? How are we gonna increase the number of potholes we're gonna fix?
We're gonna increase them by stopping chasing work orders. And by picking an area and focusing on that area, and working down the street instead of doing two and running to the other side of town to do the next one's on work orders. That's how we're gonna maximize the time.
We're gonna get more done.
Get more done that way.
All right, good.
Alrighty. Discussion regarding drainage issues at the intersection of Roosevelt and Haynes.
That was a council inquiry.
Was it?
Do we need a?
No, this is just discussion.
Yeah, so this is discussion. It was great to talk about, but we went out there, he went out and looked at it today. We looked through some of the pictures and stuff over there too. I mean, there is some drainage on the side of the road. Of course, it's overgrown right now. And so that's an issue. Everything's starting to get overgrown right now. This is that peak, I thank God it's down to 48 degrees. That grass will quit growing, and the weeds will quit growing, and everything will quit growing, and give us a chance to get caught up. But there is drainage on the, what is that, Rick, on the east side of the road?
There's, on the east side of the road, there's a drainage ditch that's there, but it's overgrown, and it's pretty high, so I'm sure that's a big issue. And then when you come to the intersection of Roosevelt and Haynes, that private property where that gate is at, That also is a natural flood area where it's supposed to drain, it's supposed to do natural drainage. So we're gonna have to look at that and see if the city can go in there and help and cut that grass or whatever has been done there is to help that drainage go through.
And so when you look at that gate, I mean, everything's stopping right there. And it is overgrown. I mean, it's a zoo on the other side of that, on the other side of the gate, and that's the natural flow for that water, so that doesn't help at all. So even if the drainage ditch was working right, once it got to that private property, then, you know, so that's gonna become an issue if he doesn't want the drainage going to his private property. Obviously, that's probably why he did that. And so now we've got a whole separate issue there that we'll have to figure out how to address.
Is this North Roosevelt or South Roosevelt?
South.
The north end's pretty.
Yeah, the north.
We talked, this is the south, we talked about North Roosevelt also, coming up with a plan on fixing North Roosevelt.
On the north end?
Yeah.
Fixing it up to
Roosevelt and
Chaparral.
So I can scratch this.
Swallow material.
So that's gonna be designated,
Yeah.
compacted.
Use the zipper, use that as fill in there, because on that intersection, you can almost lose a cell.
Did y'all happen to drive down on Haines Street all the way to the end?
I did, ma'am,
And
and
then-
the same thing there, because it used to drain back this way, and you can see that on the property owners aren't keeping up with their stuff either. That's part of it.
Well, I know when you drive down there, because I have relatives that live back there, and you have to go around, because when you go in the middle of the road, there's holes in the middle of the world, not on the sides, because we have to
Well,
drive.
if you look at it, and you see all the overgrown grass, it's where when it rains and all the dirt comes to the street, well, then you have grass growing, well, guess what? Now it doesn't let the water drain off, so it stays in the middle of the road. When you're driving a heavy vehicle, and there's gonna cause big potholes. So we need to work on clearing the edges so the water can run off the roads. That's what's happening right now. Yes, sir.
I have a question. There on Roosevelt and Chaparral. I see an embankment on there where they built a house and then they put an embankment on there. Is that what's causing it as well? I mean, that big old embankment there?
So that embankment has been there forever. The only, I mean, it just got taller.
Yeah.
That water went over because that's where the lift station's at. But that embankment has always been there.
Oh, it has? Okay.
Yeah, all the way, if you look at it, it probably goes down like 200-300 feet south. You see how all the properties have that embankment? That's how it's been.
So it's meant to turn it and bring it down, but then you have that, I mean, the way that intersection is right now, it's just gonna fill up there and stay there, and every time somebody drives through, the flow dries up, just make it worse.
Exactly.
I don't know how it drains there, but if I'm not mistaken, when you're going north on Roosevelt and you make that turn, there's a driveway that's going north. I believe that's the natural drainage for that. I don't know what they've done, I haven't been there in years.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, I can take a look, I can see what's going on. I heard it got really, really bad.
Back to Haines Street, what can be done for those?
As soon as it dries up, maybe the city can go in there and start clearing up the property right there at that intersection, so we can have a natural flow. But right now, it's way too money to put any machine in there.
I mean, not even to cover up the holes that are on Haines Street?
I'm sorry?
To cover up the holes that are back there?
I mean, they can put, I would recommend just caliche base for now and not waste any of the asphalt until it dries up. But caliche base would work.
Yeah, at least something, because, I mean, it is very bad back there.
I can drive all the way down, so I don't know how bad it was.
Yeah, it's.
If not, I would have said something.
One other thing regarding drainage, I saw all the drainage ditches, I mean, they all have overgrown grass on the roadway. Is that gonna be cleaned up pretty soon? Because I know it's deterring some of that water going in there. You know, so some of these drain ditches.
Talking about the drains themselves?
Yeah.
Where the actual cover?
You know, where it's cut, like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's full of grass and debris and, I've not only seen one, I've seen several.
Right, that's part of the, that's part of the cycle that we have with the right-of-way crew.
Oh,
They do
okay.
one, then they go and clean those, and they do one, but right now we can't keep up with anything else, that's growing faster than,
Yeah.
we're getting 2 or 3 inches of growth on that stuff, probably every 2 or 3 days right now, so. But yeah, we clean those up, we do right-of-ways, and we go through and we get all those drains, and keep those drains clean. But yeah, we'll make sure that we follow up on the drains. So hopefully with this weather, with this temperature, everything will slow down, and we can get it all caught up.
That's cool.
This is normally the problem we have in September, early September, late August, when we get those rains. Everything just grows so fast, we can't keep up until it cools down. This time we just came a little bit late, so hopefully we'll be able to catch up quicker.
In the, our cleaning machine, what is it, that sweeper?
Sweeper.
Would it have that spray option on there as well soon?
Yeah, so, we talked about that, we've got an operator, for those pieces of equipment. One of our operators is sick, that's been our problem, he's been sick for a while. And so I think he's about to get back to work at a normal level, and so that's gonna help we can't replace him because he's sick, I mean, he's still employed, so. We're hoping he's about to get cleared up and we'll be ready to get him out there full time again, and not have to take any more time off. And then that equipment will run a lot more often.
Moving on to item M. Discussion regarding 2018-2019 Pearsall City Council vision and goals.
So this is one of the things for retreat, I wanted to give it to you so you have it, so you look at it before you get there.
Oh, okay, so this ain't this part of
Now,
retreat.
there's plenty of time for discussion and nobody's got off. So that, the version you have is the version of the vision and goals, what I gave you the packet is what was adopted by the 2017-2018 council. So hopefully we can get that adopted right after that, after the retreat. So I need you to update your vision, or I gave you that as a starting point.
Okay. Alrighty. Then we'll move on into executive session. Need to entertain a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code Chapter 551, Subchapter D, 551.074.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Time is 8:48. No action taken in executive session. Need to entertain a motion to resume regular session.
Second.
All in favor? So item 7, open session, no action necessary. On to item 8, manager's report.
Madam Mayor, Council, item number 1, National Night Out. The City of Pearsall joined forces with the Pearsall Apartments to host a National Night Out event on October 2nd. The event was a huge success. The first responders from all over the county attend and spend time with folks that came out. I want to thank the Pearsall Police Department for taking the ball and running with this event. Also, the Parks Department, Main Street Department, and staff here at City Hall were a huge help in pulling this off. We were able to unveil our new city bounce houses at the event, and they were a huge success. Financial report, this time I'm just to give you a financial report.
Madam Mayor and Council Member, as you probably have in front of you, your 2 financial reports for the end of September 30th, 2018. Start off with our utility bills for the past due 2/11. 9 days past due is 133, so they're continuing to increase. Our debt service, we have paid all loan payments out for the fiscal year, so everything's been closed out. We'll have a new amortization schedule for the upcoming year with new payments, pretty much reflecting almost the same annual payments that we receive right now. Our cash on deposit, your general fund, you have 1.094. Your utilities funds went down negative 156. Your fire fund, we have 77,000. Your CO 2016 bond, we have 1.9. Hotel motel 322. Interest and season, we do have negative of 15,000. Your police forfeiture, we have 10,000, police training, 13,000, and then your other miscellaneous small funds combined is 561. Going on to the next portion is the ad valorem taxes. We budgeted 2.08, we're at 2.06. Our delinquent taxes were way over from 40 to 127 is what we actually collected in delinquent taxes. So that improved overall. Penalty, interest, and costs, 35,000 was budgeted, 48,000 was collected. Our city sales tax, we went over on our city sales tax as well, collected. From 2.124 was budgeted and we received 2.172. Mixed beverage, it was a small portion, budgeted at 7.5. We received 4.6. Franchise fees as well, we received more. 315 was budgeted and we received 340. So we pretty much hit everything we were supposed to with a little bit of extra cushion. So we did very well on our revenue side. Underneath your general fund, you can see the snapshot year to date for total revenue and expenditures. And our net over is 1.244. Utilities combined, we have a net over of 342. We also showcase our month end for September, and we did have a negative of 110, trying to close out everything possible that we could for the fiscal year, so we don't have no surprises for next. So that's where we sat there. The second report is basically the same thing. It gives you an overview of your budget. As total revenue, 6.5 for general fund. We collected 6.737. So we were over 102.80% of our revenues. Revitalization fund was a new fund that we created. We budgeted 15, year to date is 11.492. CDBG 275, we collected 39,000. The fire fund, we budgeted 120, we collected 157. Some of the expenditures from last year were coming in this fiscal year, so that's why it is a little bit over. Again, you have your CO bond, what we previously had collected, the 5.4. Your hotel motel fund, we budgeted at 1.071. Year to date, we collected 1.019. Your interest in sinking, 429, and year to date was 403. Police training fund, we budgeted 5 and we collected 5,000. Police forfeiture, 9,000, we collected 9,000, and then your utilities fund, we budgeted 4.883 and we received 4.852. And then on the lower end are all your expenditures for your general fund. We budgeted the same amount as revenues collected, which was 6.553. Year to date, we expended 5.493, which was significantly lower. Revitalization fund, there was a budget of 15,000, but nothing expended. CDBG, we had budgeted 275. We only budget what we received, which is the 39175. Fire fund, 120 was budgeted, and we expended 109. Your CO bond was 5.442. Year to date, we've expended 3.5. Hotel motel, 1.071. Year to date, we've expended 1.026. Interest in sinking, we budgeted 417 and we expended 417. Police training fund, we expended 4.9, which is a little bit lower than 5,000. And then your police forfeiture fund was expended at the same amount as your budget as well. Utilities fund expenditure was 4.8 and we expended 4.19. So we came under on all our expenditures, so we try to be conservative and do all that. Everything looks good.
Yes, sir.
The revitalization fund, what is that used for?
That's pretty much a grant that we are setting aside, depending, those are the collections that we did for Cinco de Mayo, the entry fees that we collected to go ahead and start
Main
with
Street.
revitalization funds for the facade and all that. So, depending on what y'all want to do with that portion of the funds for Main Street, then we'll get an idea of how to proceed with grants or how, whichever way. Right now, it's just sitting there, that's what was collected, that was the intention, and it's just there.
So we budgeted 15,000 and we collected.
We collected 11,492.80, and it hadn't extended anything, because like I said, that was just a preliminary, and we haven't really decided how to go forth with it.
And another question on sales, city sales tax. Collected 102%. Is that, what percentage was collected last year or the year before?
I don't remember what the percentage was. 2 years ago, the percentage was about 60% of what was budgeted in 2015. 2016, I think we had 97%, 90.
And in 2016-17, our actual was 2.009.
The percentage.
I can't see anything on the percentage or like.
So in 2015, we came way below because the projection was 3.5 million, we collected 2 million. And that was 2016, 2017, we projected the 2.028, and I think we were a little bit above that. Maybe we were a little over 100% last year as well. It's better to be 102% than 98%.
Yeah, we did pretty good with sales tax this year, so.
Okay, so is there an increase in the total amount for the last couple of years?
Yes, it did. We 2.0.
We went from 16-17, our actual was 2.009. 17-18, I have 1.996.
Yeah.
And then this year is 2.172.
Awesome.
So my last question is fund balance?
Fund balance.
The fund balance?
You talk about a reserve balance?
Yeah, reserve.
So if you look on the first sheet, over on the cash on deposit box, with the year-end numbers, you'll see that, actually, let's look at another one. The first big long box, where it's date October 1st through September 30th, you see the title for that one? If you look at the general fund, you'll see the total revenue was 6.737 million. And the total expenditures were 5.493. So that was a balance in the general fund of 1.244 million at the end of the year. Now keep in mind that we have the insurance levy in that balance, and the insurance reserve is 626,809.12. So if you take that off, if you take the insurance off, then that net over and under is going to be someplace around $600,000. And that would include, so the 50,000 from the year before was left in there because it was never moved. So probably somewhere a little bit over 500,000. We still have to get the auditor to come in and check everything and make sure that we didn't miss anything, but it looks like it's about there. That's why when we talked about the agreement earlier, I said that we would be able to use reserves to fund it as soon as you guys want to, if you accepted the agreement, and then we can just put the pilot back into reserves.
So over the last 3 years, we're in a negative 3 years ago, right?
3 years ago, we finished the year negative $400,000.
Negative 450,000 plus. Now it's
A little over 500,000.
And that's unencumbered.
That's unencumbered, yes it is.
That's awesome.
That is amazing.
Well, something else. And well done, and just to recognize that budget is, as we know, is just our best estimation, but again, to get that close, as you indicated on the sales tax, I mean, that's really good. I know we were conservative. And then looking at sheet 2, looking at revenues, because we can, our total budget's about 12 million, 12 to 13 million, including garbage and all that. But that seal really kind of distorts it, so when you take that out, we really weren't at 70% of budget, we were 101% of budget on the revenue, so hats off again, because it's a running number, but it was very close. Doing the same on the expenses, a little bit, we're about 90%, but still a very good number. And again, hats off, well done.
One other thing, before we get on with this, if we go back up to that cash on deposit box on the left-hand side of that sheet, it's the first small box, it's the third set of boxes down, it's one that says cash on deposit. You asked about the utility funds a while ago. So if you remember, the previous reports had that utility fund balance of $856,000 negative, but it still showed gas, water, and sewer, because we had to wait till the year was closed out to close out more of the accounts and just go straight to the utility account. So we went from a beginning negative balance in utility fund of $856,000 negative last year to a closing balance of negative $156. So we dropped $700,000 off of what we had in there. So a month or two, we'll be back to gas thing is capable, but we can talk about that item a while ago. So a month, maybe 2 months at the most, we'll be ready to get with you guys to, if they were refunded now, we'll cover it. That's what we talked about, so we'd be close enough that we can talk to them and see if they were going to be refunded, and we are. Because our prepayment was 140, and we're at 156, so we're close enough they ought to. And I actually have an email from the guy from Community Gas from while we were gone. So I'm gonna see if we can get them to refund it now and then balance out. So financially, we're a lot better than we're going to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? So item number 3, Main Street's First Friday. The third First Friday event sponsored by the Pearsall Main Street Committee was held on October 5th on Colorado Street between Oak and Elm. The event was well attended again. We had food, our new bounce houses, and music. We will continue to host these events every first Friday to draw people to our downtown and support our local businesses. The next event, though, is going to be held on October 31st, a couple of days early, and will be a trunk or treat event here at City Hall, sponsored by the Main Street Board, to provide yet another safe place for our local kiddos to have a little fun. The event will have music, trunks, bounce houses, a movie, and craft stations for the kids. So that'll be out here in the parking lot. The trunks will be over here, the bounce houses will be on the street, and the movie will be back over here on this side, right about dark. Joint work session, the joint work session between the City of Pearsall City Council, the City of Dilley City Council, and the Frio County Commission was held on Monday, October 8th at 6 p.m. at the Dilley City Hall. As you all know, with the audience is not, the county only had one commissioner present. I think some good things did come from this meeting. The hospital board representative did state that the hospital district can help pay for the service, whatever that means. At least we know that they're not saying they can't be part of it anymore. We will need to push this statement and make sure we follow up on it. Also, a question was raised as to where the tax dollars that are paid out of the city to the county go. This needs to continue to be followed up on until we get some answers. Road work, the large section of Willow Street is completed. The repairs from the Y to 8th will be completed as soon as the weather allows. Intersection project continues, as you heard, to move forward. And I'm sure you're seeing the progress. We've already began looking at Bond Road and the intersection of Chaparral and Roosevelt to see what we can do to try to work on those. City-sponsored fundraiser, you heard the cheerleaders earlier. The city staff worked with cheerleaders from Pearsall and Dilley High School and hosted a fundraising tournament on September 23rd at the sports complex and the high school. Each girl that's participating in the travel received just over $1,000 from that one-day event to help defer the cost of traveling overseas in December to represent their hometowns at either London or Rome for New Year's Day parades. Talked about this right too, but quickly. Staff members met with representatives from Johnson Controls at the TML conference last week to discuss issues with the water metering program. Company representatives will be here in Pearsall on Thursday at 1 o'clock for the first meeting to start working through the issues, to train staff on proper use of the equipment, and to formalize a plan to rectify all of our concerns. Once this plan is formalized and work is ready to start, Johnson Controls will be coming to a council meeting to provide a full historical report of the process that was used in the meter replacement project.
Awesome.
STEC pilot negotiations, as discussed earlier, the city manager, city attorney, and city finance director met with STEC representatives to draft a proposed pilot agreement for consideration for the city council. You saw the reiteration they sent back that you approved. You all have already made a decision related to that proposed agreement prior to me giving this report. However, wanted to make sure and point out that whatever choice you made tonight, I believe that the process in reaching out to STEC and making the offer to work with them on this will provide positive dividends in the future. So that just goes back to future expansions. I think that they're really going to be looking more here on those future expansions than will anyplace else. The HEB 380 payment, the payment required under the 380 agreement with HEB was issued on September 30th as the council voted. We did notify HEB corporate office that the check would be held until their water bill was caught up, or they're working to resolve that issue now. In the TML presentation, for those that were not in attendance, the 2017 city council members who were part of the city council selected by the Texas City Management Association were featured presenters at the Texas Municipal League Conference last week in Fort Worth. For those of you that were part of the presentation, I wanted to say you did a great job. I heard nothing but positive comments from everyone I talked to the rest of the conference about your presentation. Y'all have a lot to be proud of. That's all I have.
I guess you guys have reviewed the city bills, right? Bills paid? Okay, we'll move on to general announcements. General announcements? Oh, okay. Then we'll move it on to city council inquiries for future agendas. Any items you guys want to place on the agenda?
I wanted to ask you about, I know we had talked about it, Brenda, remember at the conference about that car wash right here where that Maverick, that car is, who owns that? Do y'all know?
By the Dairy Queen. Used to be Mike Wilson, but it's sold years ago.
Garden?
Garden.
Joe Garden?
Joe Garden, okay.
But when they sold it, they put a restriction that he couldn't open it up. It's a car wash.
No, I was just concerned because I was wondering who it belonged to in case, you know, I thought maybe the city could, you know, do something with it or, you know.
It's not ours.
Yeah.
It's private.
Joe, that's something we need to ask, because that'll be on the next meeting.
Yes.
It's already all right. I'll put it on.
Plan of action for Pecan Road.
Pecan?
Pecan, the end of the street, Pecan Street?
Yes.
Oh.
Let's talk about South Pecan.
So now since you're on
Yes.
South Pecan, you can shake that Carter and Walnut.
One second.
I said a plan of action for South Moreno.
Okay. We can just talk about it and just, Pecan South.
Little Moreno Street sale.
So remember, this is not a question today.
That's what I say, agenda items. Agenda items, Pecan. And then if you want Moreno, you gotta get two other, no, I'm the mayor.
I thought, well, you put on there, but I thought we decided how we're fixing that.
How?
By doing the drainage project on 1581.
Yeah.
That was,
Did we, for Moreno?
yeah.
No.
Okay, let's just put it on the agenda so we can discuss it, please. I mean, yes, well, I'll put it on there for you.
No, that's not how we.
We'll put it on the agenda so we can't discuss it now. We just agenda items. So you got the two.
I got three.
Okay,
And you guys do.
okay. South Pecan?
Burger Walnut.
Carter Walnut did 3 people.
Carter one? Oh.
There you go.
You got 3. Okay, anything else for the agenda?
The maintenance schedule?
On the sweeper.
2 or more?
The codes, the codification.
2 more?
The online. Talk about the online portion.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
are we doing it all total?
Well, discussion, just discussion right now.
In regards to that. Oh, and the compliance officer.
Wait a minute,
for
you
that.
gotta get two more before you move on to the next one. You've already won. Okay. And then now your next one?
The code compliance officer, in regards to some of this abandoned vehicles,
Need 2 more.
buildings.
You got it?
Yeah.
All right. We're legal now. Is that it?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion we adjourn.
So be it.